Right Side Nation, what's good? It's your boy Hanley. Just wanted to hop on. It's September the 13th. I'm headed back to St. Louis, Missouri. I've been living out in California. Things are great. And basically, what I wanted to do is talk about the man who is named Barrack Hussein Obama. Some call him Barry Soweto. Some call him Barry. No one really knows. What's really his background? We're not quite sure. The documents are sealed. Somewhat known, both of his parents were communists. But really, what we need to do is dig into this speech that he gave at the University of Illinois in Springfield, Illinois. And the real thing that I need to start out with is the audacity that this guy has to climb out from underneath his rock to one, take credit for the current state of the economy under President Trump, and then further give us a history lesson on the United States of America, what he believes it means to be American, and then consistently go on about our country and how there's this underlying issue of racism in our country. And we've heard it before. People have called him the divider in chief. It was not easy. Okay, let me just go out and say it was not easy. I watched this entire video, and some of the things that he was saying were just so divisive. And the thing about it is, he uses this language that is full of innuendos. It's a guise to cover up his true intentions, to perpetuate his beliefs on the people and also manipulate people because of their fears. Now, he goes ahead and he talks a lot about Donald Trump throughout this speech, both directly and indirectly, talking about Trump and how he is a fear monger, et cetera, et cetera. I think the biggest difference between Donald Trump and Barack Hussein Obama is Trump says what he means and he means what he says, and Obama uses this flowery language that is full of innuendos, open ended sentences that leave people to go ahead and fill in the blank. And it's really, and I have no other word for it other than it's just cheesy. I mean, he doesn't really get to the point, and then when he makes these statements, he really doesn't just like go out and say it. He kind of says it with like a cheesy backhanded statement. And I think people are just so sick of the nonsense like that from politicians, from the Bushes to the Clintons to then Barack Obama. And then now you have Trump, this guy who has come in, he's changed the game, he's put the media on its head. And I mean, let's just look at the comparison for a second of how Trump is treated by the media and how Barack Obama was treated by the media. He was the darling of the media. Then Trump comes along, says he's going to drain the swamp. He's going to get rid of the deep state. He's going to bring the power back to the people. And then he is vilified by the media on a consistent basis. So what I went ahead and did is watch the entire video, and I've already been going on for about 4 minutes now. So I want to go ahead and get into some other things that I think were really important about this speech and point out where I think there are fallacies in his statements, and not only that, what others are saying about the speech and about Obama and about him coming out. Because I think this also shows the desperation that the left has, that the Democrats have, because I don't think they see a blue wave coming. I don't think they see that because there's not enthusiasm there where Barack Obama, like I talked about, gives a history lesson on the United States of America. And then he has this long pause and he goes ahead and totally flips the script. So I'm going to go ahead and show you exactly what I'm talking about.
Of course, there's always been another, darker aspect to America's story. Progress doesn't just move in a straight line. There's a reason why progress hasn't been easy, and why throughout our history, every 2 steps forward seems to sometimes produce 1 step back. Each time we painstakingly pull ourselves closer to our founding ideals, that all of us are created equal, endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. The ideals that say every child should have opportunity, and every man and woman in this country who's willing to work hard should be able to find a job and support a family and pursue their.
So there's no doubt that we are all born with certain inalienable rights. I think the thing that is most concerning to me is that he talks about the darker parts of America, and we're taking 2 steps forwards and we're taking 1 step back. And I sit here and I think about his 8 years as president of the United States and how he could have united the country in a way I believe that no other president could have done as the first half African American president for. And I think that was ultimately the beauty of the opportunity of having the first black president. And I think what we found is that he used every opportunity that he could to race bait and, in fact, divide the country even further. Out what I'm talking about when he's not holding his hand over his heart for the national anthem, not really supporting the national anthem, and not having that pride in our country that we see Donald Trump always talking about, which is that we stand and we salute the American flag. And that type of patriotism is the type of energy and positivity that we need in this country. So he sits here and he gives us his history lesson on America, and then he talks about the dark moments of our country. And of course, we're far from perfect, but this country has and is the most free country on the face of the earth. Now, I believe that our freedoms are currently being attacked constantly and nonstop. And there's going to be an article in the upcoming days on rightsidenews.com that we're going to talk about the southern states that the Democrats are trying to get, the 4 states that could possibly change the whole dynamic and future of our country. So I wanted to show that how he uses certain language as a guise to really hint at all these negative things that really have gone on in our country, rather than seeing Trump focusing on the positives, and we're moving forward together, united, with a strong economy, with safety at home, ridding ourselves of MS-13, and talking about, yes, we have these gangs in our country, but here's what we're doing to get them out. I mean, when do you ever hear Barack Obama talk about all the killings that happened in Chicago? He never does, because it's always he's either going to take all the credit or he's going to place all the blame on somebody else. And I'll show you a little bit about that as well.
The status quo pushes back. Sometimes the backlash comes from people who are genuinely, if wrongly, fearful of change. More often it's manufactured by the powerful and the privileged who want to keep us divided and keep us angry and keep us cynical, because that helps them maintain the status quo and keep their power and keep their privilege. And you happen to be coming of age during one of those moments. It did not start with Donald Trump. He is a symptom, not the cause.
So here's Obama, and he's talking about people coming of age at a time where the power is being kept by people who are quote unquote privileged, and they want the power needs to be kept with them, and that people are afraid of change. And this is where we go back to Obama's hope and change tagline. And that was his slogan, hope and change, hope and change. This was his whole deal. And he had 8 years of saying all of this stuff about hope and change, and we're going to change things for the better. And he talks about the 2 steps forward and the 1 step back. Well, what exactly is he even really saying here? And this is what I was talking about in terms of this language that he uses. Why doesn't he just come out and say exactly what he needs to say? People are so sick of this because it's this idea that there's something out there that this big bad guy, Donald Trump, is gonna take away all your freedoms, and he's gonna prevent your hope and your change from happening. Well, Donald Trump is not a symptom of what had been going on. What had been going on was 30 years of massive corruption and essentially our rights slowly but surely being stripped away. And what you had was Donald Trump, a billionaire, who is a person who was going to come in and he was going to fight for the common man. Now, I'm not saying everybody needs to like Donald Trump, but he spent $1 million on the Republican primary when he ran for president, right? Or when he ran for the nomination for the Republican Party. He spent $1 million of his own money. He traveled around the country on his jet. This is not something that he had to do. So how on God's given earth, an outsider coming in to run for president, how is he a symptom of this problem? Really, the problem is the establishment. The problem are the Bushes, the Clintons, the gridlock in Washington, the deep state, and the corporate media, and I believe also the CIA and the FBI. And these are all the entities that are essentially working against the people of this country. And you have Trump come in, and he's going against the grain. So I look at that about what Obama says, and then I take a look at what's actually going on.
When I came into office in 2009, we were losing 800,000 jobs a month. 800,000. Millions of people were losing their homes. Many were worried we were entering into a second Great Depression. So we worked hard to end that crisis, but also to break some of these longer-term trends. And the actions we took during that crisis returned the economy to healthy growth and initiated the longest streak of job creation on record. And we covered another 20 million Americans with health insurance, and we cut our deficits by more than half, partly by making sure that people like me, who've been given such amazing opportunities by this country, pay our fair share of taxes to help folks coming up behind them. And by the time I left office, household income was near its all-time high, and the uninsured rate had hit an all-time low, and wages were rising, and poverty rates were falling. I mention all this just so when you hear how great the economy is doing right now, let's just remember when this recovery started. But when you hear about this economic I mean, I'm glad it's continued. But when you hear about this economic miracle that's been going on, when the job numbers come out, monthly job numbers, and suddenly Republicans are saying it's a miracle, I have to kind of remind them, actually, those job numbers are the same as they were in 2015, in 2016, and anyway, I digress.
So here's Obama basically taking credit for Trump's economy. And this is an article from the Gateway Pundit. I've used them before as a source, but they put together a really good article here on exactly that bit that I just showed. He's saying, I digress. And then he basically talks about all these things that he had done. So number one, the crisis returned the economy to healthy growth. So Obama was the first president to not have one single year of 3% GDP growth. So GDP, growth domestic products and services that are being produced in the United States of America. We also covered another 20 million Americans with health insurance, he stated. They covered 21 million, but also 28 million Americans remain uninsured. He said he cut the deficits by half. It says the last Bush deficit was over 400 billion. Obama immediately increased the deficit by $1 trillion. It was 600 billion when Obama left office. And then he talks about the job numbers are the same. And the truth is that the manufacturing jobs are up by 400,000 under President Trump, and Obama lost 303,000 manufacturing jobs when he was president. So when Obama goes and he starts talking about, oh, everything that we had done was so great, look, the reality of the situation is that when he took over the economy, it was an absolute disaster. I think what a lot of people don't understand also is the difference between the deficit and the national debt. So the deficit is how much we're spending each year over the amount of money that we're taking in. So Obama had increased the deficit. Bush was spending 400 billion over the amount of money that we were taking in. Obama, based on what Gateway Pundit has here, says that Obama increased the deficit by $1 trillion. So he was at $1.4 trillion in deficit. When he left the office, the deficit went back down to 600,000. That's the deficit. As far as the national debt has to do with the amount of money that our country is in debt in totality, and that number is around the $22 trillion mark. Now note, when Barrack Hussein Obama became president of the United States, the national debt was around $11 trillion. When he left office, it was about $21 trillion. So he added $10 trillion in debt from the time he became president of the United States. That's more debt that he added to the U.S. government national debt than all of the other presidents combined. And so when Obama sits here and talks about how good the economy was, we also have to take into consideration the amount of government spending that was going on during that time. And that amount of money, $10 trillion that he spent in 8 years, like I said, was more than all of the other presidents combined. So he was essentially propping up our economy through a lot of government spending. Now, I understand why he did it in the beginning, but he continued to do it over the 8 years. Now, he also talks about people paying their fair share. Now, this is the Democrat red meat. Everybody needs to pay their fair share so that people like that come after me can be in a better position. This is a bunch of nonsense. The reality of the situation is that when people pay taxes, the taxes are then taken by the government, right? I mean, this is just basic knowledge, but I just like to break it down. So instead of somebody being able to hold on to that money, maybe invest it in their kids' future, or maybe they want to buy a property, they want to build, they want to invest in potentially a company, or they want to purchase other things, maybe an automobile. They cannot use that money to then purchase things in the private sector. Instead, that money is then taken by the federal government and used in a far less efficient way. And it also is not used by people who have to make business decisions. The government doesn't have to do that. Essentially, the government has an endless bankroll and can take that money to spend it whichever way they wish. And so I guess my point is paying taxes does not help the people that come after you. What really helps people is either your time or your money, in the sense that you are donating your funds to organizations and or foundations that are helping people in the local community. As far as I'm concerned, the federal government has no business in helping people at all. As far as I'm concerned, the way they handle their business and the way they handle their money is the complete opposite of helping Americans. So we're gonna do a quick little comparison of Barack Obama 2018, some of which I just showed you, and Barack Obama of 2016 when Trump was running for president. So here it goes.
When the job numbers come out, monthly job numbers, and suddenly Republicans are saying it's America, I have to kind of remind them, actually, those job numbers are the same as they were in 2015 and 2016. Because some of those jobs of the past are just not going to come back. And when somebody says, like the person you just mentioned, who I'm not going to advertise for, that he's going to bring all these jobs back. Well, how exactly are you going to do that? What are you going to do? There's no answer to it. He just says, well, I'm going to negotiate a better deal. Well, how exactly are you going to negotiate that? What magic wand do you have? And usually the answer is he doesn't have an answer.
MAGA cadabra, bitch. So, hey, where's the magic wand? Well, apparently Trump has one because we're MAGA cadabra all over the place. We got 4.2% GDP. The growth is outstanding. The jobs are coming back. He's renegotiating trade deals. He's negotiating with China. He already renegotiated with Mexico. And he is potentially going to bring in Canada if they want to behave, if they don't want a part of it, if they don't want part of America and us making our country great again, and in turn helping Canada renegotiate a new trade deal that is also beneficial for them, well, then that's too bad. But the whole idea here is that it is the Trump economy. Just like Barack Obama said, those jobs are gone. They're not coming back. Well, that's if you don't want to fight for them. If you don't want to be a player on the world scale, if you don't want to be out there and you don't want to be hitting the pavement in going out there and representing America and having America be respected on the world stage, then of course you're not going to get the jobs back. Because Obama didn't stick up for America. He let people walk all over us. So here is the some data on the manufacturing jobs. So it says, quotes Obama, the manufacturing jobs are never coming back. And then in 2018, in the last 19 months, the U.S. has added 836,000 manufacturing jobs. So the United States has almost added 1 million manufacturing jobs essentially in 2018. So it's really all about the negotiation, the reduction of taxes, the removal of all the red tape, all the regulations, and that's what the Trump economy is. That's the difference between Obama and Trump's economy. So I can sit here all day long and try to talk economics in the sense that I'm a brilliant economist. I mean, of course, look at me. I just know everything about economics. But I've taken a few classes, and this video that I'm about to show you is a nice little breakdown of what I think you'll find to be very helpful. And this is in regards to capital spending and capital investment. And it shows where it was when Obama was in office and then what happened when Trump became president. And this is, I mean, this isn't just showing the turnaround of the economy now, but it's showing the investments that we are having in capital spending for the future. So it's not just happening now, but it's for the upcoming quarters and years in our economy and in our overall GDP, which right now it's at 4.2%. People said that's good. I had a video a while back. I was talking about it's going to be 4%. Most likely the Atlanta Fed said that. I had talked about it. It had been tweeted out. I believe Charlie Kirk had tweeted it out. So I wanted to talk about it. But 4% is good. 6%, 8% is really, really good. And if we're really talking great economic growth, we're talking 10, 11, 12% GDP. That's real. I mean, that's a booming, absolutely an economy on a tear. And that's what America is about. It's about 9, 10, 11, 12% GDP, and it's very possible. So I'm going to flip over and show you exactly um, what this economy is looking like in terms of investments.
The next chart is something that in my first presser here way back last fall we talked a lot about. It's business investment, which is more than $300 billion over the trend. Again, if you look at the blue line on the left, the first chart is non-residential fixed investment, and the dotted line is the trend and the growth rate of that President Trump inherited. For the middle chart is structures or buildings, and that, as you can see, the dotted line is something that's headed straight down. And then the final chart is equipment investment, and that went straight down before President Trump was elected. And I think that if anyone were to assert that the capital spending boom that we're seeing right now was a continuation of the trend that President Trump inherited, then, well, you know, they wouldn't get a high grade in graduate school for that assertion.
So it's pretty simple. It was all going downhill. Trump became president, threw in the tax cuts, got deregulated the U.S. economy, and you saw people began investing because he knew, or people knew, that Trump was going to protect those jobs, and he was going to protect it through the prevention of dumping and tariffs that he was going to put on foreign goods coming into this country. So, look, we're not against free trade, but it has to be equitable, and it has to be in a sense that, okay, if someone's going to sell product in our country, it has to benefit us. And if we need that product, well, what if we don't need it? Then why the hell should we buy it? Why don't they go to sell it to somebody else that does? And that's how, I mean, that's a capitalist economy, okay? And we want a world economy that hopefully is capitalist. So I thought that was a very important thing to put into this video.
And got Iran to halt its nuclear program.
Got Iran to halt its nuclear program. You mean when you gave them $1.5 billion in cash? In cash? I mean, he was giving Iran everything that they wanted in this deal. And you know, the thing that Trump always talks about, if you don't like what you're getting in a deal, just walk away. So we keep throwing cash money at Iran, thinking that they are going to abide by our rules in terms of the nuclear program that they're developing and have been developing for years. I mean, this is complete and total nonsense, believe me. Okay? It's a bunch of nonsense, a bunch of BS that Barack Obama likes to feed, thinking that this Iran deal was some type of earth-shattering deal that was going to be great for America.
A politics of fear and resentment and retrenchment takes hold. And demagogues promise simple fixes to complex problems. No promise to fight for the little guy, even as they cater to the wealthiest and most powerful. No promise to clean up corruption and then plunder away. They start undermining norms that ensure accountability.
So basically, Obama is standing up here delivering this speech, and he is calling Trump a demagogue, who is essentially a demagogue is essentially a politician that plays on the fears of people, and that we Republicans or we people that voted for Donald Trump, there's a lot of people that didn't vote for Donald Trump or that voted for Donald Trump that are not Republican. They were Democrats or they were independents or they were people that had never even voted before. And this is the whole idea. Obama is up here calling Trump that he's playing on the fears. Well, Trump is telling it how it is. And he did the exact opposite when Obama was up there talking about all this hope and change and that all this progress in terms of progressivism and all this flowery language and all this nonsense that he likes to spew. Trump's up there telling it how it is, and that's why he won. And also the Democrats lost because they had Hillary Clinton up there. That's what everybody forgets about. It was not only a rebuke of Barack Obama and all of this hope and change bullshit. It was on Hillary Clinton. One, she was a sick person, not only mentally, but I believe that she was physically sick. I mean, we all saw when she fell into the limousine, and I'll go ahead and pull up a little video of that. But not only that, she wasn't even going to these states. All these states that she thought she was going to win: Ohio, Wisconsin, Florida, Indiana. I mean, there were all these states that apparently Trump couldn't win. Michigan, Pennsylvania, all of these states. Yeah, I mean, Trump won them, and he actually won them fairly easily. So it's not about fear. It's more about taking the country away from these globalists and these people that think that they know what's best for people like you and me, when in fact, we are the ones that know what's best for ourselves and for our country. And that is what it means to be free. That's what it means to be American: the life, the liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And we are the ones that essentially have the power in this country, and God gave us those rights. And this isn't something that some type of politician or reformer in some sense is going to bestow upon us. So there's Hillary Clinton falling in 2016 at a 9/11 ceremony. So that was the video that I was going to go ahead and show you.
Sure accountability and try to change the rules to entrench their power further. And they appeal to racial nationalism that's barely veiled.
Racial nationalism. What exactly does he mean by that? Does he mean that our nation is racist? Racial nationalism. it's just, to me, that's just like, okay, can we not, if we're proud, if we're white and we're proud to be American, does that make us racist? Our nation racist? I mean, what is he really talking about? That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense what he's saying there.
But I have to say this, because sometimes we hear, oh, a plague on both your houses. Over the past few decades, wasn't true when Jim Edgar was a governor here in Illinois, or Jim Thompson was governor. Got a lot of good Republican friends here in Illinois. But over the past few decades, the politics of division and resentment and paranoia has unfortunately found a home in the Republican Party.
Paranoia? Division? In the Republican Party? Wait. He must be living under a rock, because from what I've seen and what I know is that you have Antifa, who's out in the streets, is essentially a fascist group, which I call Antifa, anti-First Amendment. And this guy has the audacity to stand up there and say that Republicans are the party of division? I mean, it's just baffling to me. And not only that, all of these groups are funded by George Soros. And I'm not going to lie, Obama is very good at standing up there and spewing this nonsense. And that's why I had to watch this video and I had to fire back at this guy, because if people actually believe this, I mean, if they don't have the brain to think critically and in ways logically about what he's saying, I get it. But I have to come in, or somebody has to come in, and we have to have rebuttals to these comments. That's why I keep playing a clip and then come back on and then say, how are we the bad guys when you have Antifa and then you have all of these Twitter, Facebook, Google, all of these tech companies essentially working with the Democrats. You also have the FBI and the DOJ, which was weaponized by Barack Obama when he was president of the United States, so that he didn't have to, or so that they didn't go after Hillary Clinton. James Comey, I'm sure, was told to do something. Mueller, Clapper, Brennan, all of these guys, they're all in cahoots. And so we have to CTR, correct the record, my friends. Sometimes we got to sit and correct it, because this guy is full of shit.
We know that in a smaller, more connected world, we can't just put technology back in a box. We can't just put walls up all around America.
Why can't we put up a wall around America? We're going to put a wall on the southern border. We're going to secure the border. We're going to prevent the drugs from coming through. We're going to prevent people from human trafficking. We're just not going to allow it anymore. So if we need to build a wall, like Israel has built a wall, like many other countries, like Mexico has built a wall on their southern border, we're going to build a wall and we're going to prevent people from coming into our country illegally. Now, he can sit up there all day and say, oh, you can't build a wall, but we're sure as hell going to build a wall. And in fact, it just got 10 feet taller. Thanks, Barack.
I complained plenty about Fox News. But you never heard me threaten to shut them down or call them enemies of the people. It shouldn't be Democratic or Republican to say we don't target certain groups of people based on what they look like or how they pray. We are Americans. We're supposed to stand up to bullies.
Most important things to note here is that if there are certain people with a certain ideology that are involved in certain actions and they hold certain beliefs to be true, and they are willing to hurt us and those around us, then we are absolutely 110% okay to be cautious and perhaps surveil certain people who are willing to take liberties against those who aren't American. And that, if that is a certain religion, that's fine. Maybe it's a certain cult. Who knows? I can't really say, but the reality of the situation is that if we know there is a legitimate threat from a certain specific group of people, if it happens to be radical Islamic terrorists or radical Islamicists or Islamics, then that's what we have to do. And if they're preaching this in their mosques, then that's what we have to look at. That's the reality of the situation. That's like saying if we have a bunch of people that are in a church and they're sitting there and they're going to go out and hurt a bunch of people, that we can't look if it's happening in several churches. I mean, look at what's going on in the Catholic Church. That has to be looked at. That priests have been molesting and sexually abusing children in the Catholic Church. Those priests, for instance, should be targeted based on their actions. And the government and the officials that are local need to take action. Now, I'm not saying that sexual abuse is happening in the mosques. Maybe it's radical terrorism that is happening in the mosques. But if we know that there are certain actions, like in the mosque, if it's radical terrorism, let's look at radical terrorism. If there's sexual abuse going on in the Catholic Church with priests and that are sexually abusing little kids, then we need to look specifically at what's going on within each of those specific entities.
It should not be Democratic or Republican. It should not be a partisan issue to say that we do not pressure the Attorney General or the FBI to use the criminal justice system as a cudgel to punish our political opponents.
So that right there is the ultimate projection. So this is Obama, who had weaponized the Department of Justice with Loretta Lynch when she was the Attorney General, and she did not persecute Hillary Clinton. And then he also used the FBI and the CIA, I believe, to go after Donald Trump during the 2016 presidential election and after they did on this Russian collusion nonsense. So this is the classic case of projection done by the Democrats, and the king of it all, Barrack Hussein Obama.
Who don't believe in the power of collective action. You don't make people angrier and yelling at each other and making people cynical about government. That always works better for those who don't believe in the power of collective action.
So right there, what exactly is he talking about there? This is the point where Barack Obama is essentially talking about people being cynical of government, and that's exactly what people should be. They should be very cynical of the government, of the power that has been given to the government and how they use those powers. Now, he talks about collective activism of some sort. Why is the government involved in this political activism of any sort? All the government really should be doing is defending the people and protecting our liberties. And that is what the government is there to do. It isn't this massive entity that has been created in the United States that has control over
the idea that, well, there's racism in America, so I'm not going to bother voting. No point.
So why does Obama always go back? His default is racism in America. Racism in America. So if America was so racist, why did they elect the first black president or first half black president of the United States. We aren't a racist nation if we in fact did that. Now that goes without saying. There are some racists in our country. There are white racists, there are black racists, there are Mexicans that are racist. And that is what it is. We can all acknowledge that, but to say that Americans in totality are racist is complete garbage.
That through the testing of ideas and the application of reason and evidence and proof, we could sort through our differences and nobody would get exactly what they wanted, but it would be possible to find a basis for common ground.
So here, Obama is talking about common ground, and I believe that is exactly what Trump does. He is a deal maker. Look at immigration. Trump wants to make a deal on immigration, but the Democrats are not willing to come to the table. Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters, Chuck Schumer, they don't want to make a deal on immigration. They don't want common ground in that scenario. So this is all nice. This is all the flowery talk. It's convenient for him because he's standing up here as a previous president who wants to come out after he's done and bash a sitting president. And he has the right to do so. He has the right to the freedom of speech, but also it just doesn't add up, because that is what Trump wants to do. He wants to find common ground. He wants to strike a deal, even if everybody doesn't get what they want. That's exactly what Trump is. He is a deal maker.
I know there are Republicans who believe government should only perform a few minimal functions, but that one of those functions should be making sure nearly 3,000 Americans don't die in a hurricane and its aftermath.
So how convenient. He's going to go ahead and politicize the hurricane in Puerto Rico. Now, I have a tweet here and an article that I'm going to go ahead and pull up that I'll put in the description, but I found this to be quite interesting. So we have all of this water that was delivered in Puerto Rico. Millions of waters of bottle meant for the victims of Hurricane Maria has been sitting on a runway in Puerto Rico since last year. Let's go ahead and pull this up. Look at all this supplies. It's just been sitting there. So I think what we're seeing here is that Obama is going to sit up here and criticize the Republicans because they haven't met the basic needs of the people that had died in Puerto Rico. But the reality, as you just saw, and I'm going to go ahead and flip over, is all of these supplies were not delivered to the people of Puerto Rico. I mean, this is massive, massive amounts of supplies and product that was to be delivered to the victims of this hurricane.
Fortunately, I am hopeful, because out of this political darkness, I am seeing a great awakening of citizenship all across the country.
I think the great awakening is the American people standing up to the establishment and the deep state, and that is the great awakening, the people that are behind the Trump movement. And honestly, I don't think there's a damn thing that Barack Obama can do to come out of his little foxhole and start talking down to us Americans. We are the great awakening, the Make America Great Again movement, the Keep America Great movement, the Walk Away movement, who was just banned on Facebook, similar to what happened to Diamond and Silk on Facebook and also Alex Jones. So we are the great awakening.
Because in the end, the threat to our democracy doesn't just come from Donald Trump or the current batch of Republicans in Congress or the Koch brothers and their lobbyists, or too much compromise from Democrats, or Russian hacking. The biggest threat to our democracy is indifference. The biggest threat to our democracy is cynicism. Cynicism led too many people to turn away from politics and stay home on election day.
The only people that are responsible for the cynicism of Democrats and the Democrat Party are Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, Loretta Lynch, and all of those people that have been involved, James Comey, that have been involved in this nonsense with weaponizing the DOJ, the IRS, and the Russian collusion nonsense that has been going on. Those are the people that need to be blamed. And for him to stand up here and say that Trump is a threat to democracy is absolute lunacy. So I know there's a lot of content in here. I know there's a lot of information, but I really had to go and watch this entire thing bit by bit, piece by piece, and go ahead and talk about each of these comments. I thought it was absolutely necessary. So I hope the video was insightful. I hope it was helpful. And it's just an absolute pleasure to be on. So again, this is Mike Hanley with RightSideNews.com. Don't be left, be right.